Well, I knew something about the organization. I think it probably was before it was even named the NCCAA. I had known Norm Wilhelmy, its founder, when he was a senior at Taylor when I first came to Taylor. He started it as a basketball tournament, and then I think it began to include some baseball tournaments as well. And it wasn't until about 1985 when Don Callan, who was my roommate from college, was the president-elect coming through the ranks. And Don had asked me to come and visit one of their annual meetings in Chattanooga, and just to analyze the organization and look at it and see if I had some suggestions for them. Well, I was quite impressed with the organization, and after watching things and listening carefully, I said I really didn't think they had a lot of problems except for one. Their constituency was made up of Christian colleges and Bible colleges that were all fighting for their own financial life, and they really couldn't help them financially, and that was their biggest problem. I said what they really needed was a second constituency of Christian businessmen to help them solve the financial problems. I became one of the first two at-large members on the board and made a suggestion that someday they start a golf tournament and invite Christian pros and Christian businessmen to that tournament, and I felt like we could really accomplish what we needed to do to help them financially. They pondered that for over a year, and one January they turned to me and said, "We've been thinking about your suggestion. We think you ought to do that." So I said, "Well, that's good. That gives me about 14 months to plan." They said, "No, we were thinking about this spring." So it was a pretty tall order. In fact, some people said it can't be done. Well, that's like sick 'em to a dog. And we began planning. I set a goal to get 40 people there. We ended up with 36. 9 pros, 27 amateurs. We lost about $5,000 that first year, but the big thing was it was off the ground. Well, I remember that it was tough. Kermit Zarley had come in and did a Bible study with us in that first evening, and I felt like everybody was happy with the experience and certainly looking forward to the next year. The second year, we had 60. And still lost money because we were at a very expensive course at Grand Cypress. And so we changed the course, went to a place where we saved about 60% of all of our expenses, and from the third year on, the organization has had a profit out of it, and it's worked very well, and has accomplished that end of getting the second constituency of businessmen. And in fact, I think one of the biggest surprises to us was that it was very apparent that it was a special blessing to the pros. I've had a number of them talk to me about how that in the course of playing the tour, that this has been like a little oasis for them to come, and sometimes they're able to bring their families. And so that's been a blessing that I think is carried on each year. The fourth year of the Pro-Am, we got the practice round in, and then the tournament was rained out. I mean, at monsoon. It was horrible. I spent a sleepless night trying to reconfigure things. We spent hours on the phone trying to find another course somewhere in the area that wouldn't be flooded out, that we could play it. Finally determined that tournament was not going to be played. And so we planned some indoor activities, had an indoor putting contest that pros and amateurs both were part of, and an amateur won it, by the way. We had a couple of different clinics, and they went very well. And then the final banquet, which was supposed to be our award ceremony, we had given those out kind of by a drawing earlier. And Bernhard Langer, who had not been a Christian for a very long time, gave his testimony, and it was precious. All of the story that he told probably in the course of 15 or 20 minutes, and it was just very, very moving. And there's no question that is the outstanding moment to me in all of the years. The outreach ministry of this Pro-Am has become something very unusual. The ministries that are going on that are really not part of golf necessarily are just excellent. There are just a lot of other things that go on that aren't really golf, and I think as those continue, we're going to see many, many people blessed through the years to come. Well, I think we experience a spiritual renewal every time we reflect on God's blessing on our lives, on our family, and on our business. And we realize that when God does something, He does it right, and it's never weak, and it's never faulting. And God has blessed us in that respect, and we have so many memories to prove that.